After I graduated from high school, I've been working at a small local factory manufacturing molds for nearly 40 years since I was 18. Officially, we had a 2-day off a week, but once or twice a month, I had to work on weekends too. The factory was so busy and thriving. Even though it was a small-town factory, it was responsible for supporting America's technological prowess. I was proud of that. That day was supposed to be my day off, a Saturday. "Alex, were you working today?" said Lisa, the familiar owner of the small diner, looking at me in my work clothes. "Yeah, the boss asked me to come in for some urgent work. There's been a small diner near the station not far from the factory for many years. I knew about it, but I started going to the place just about 6 months ago. My coworker introduced me to it. The taste of the food was just right for me, and the price was reasonable, so I liked it. What I liked even more was Lisa, who runs the place by herself. She's friendly and attentive, yet firmly scolds any customers who get drunk or act poorly. Her straight-faced look with fair cheeks matched well with her apron. Shortly after I started going to the place, I asked her, "Hey, how old are you?" 18. I couldn't help but ask back, "Really?" Lisa laughed. "Of course not." I laughed too, at my own foolishness. Since then, she started calling me by Alex. "This chicken soup is tasty," I blurted out, holding a quick glass of beer. "Alex, if it's chicken, you'll eat it." "Easy customer," she said. "It's my favorite, can't help it. But this is delicious. Which supermarket did you buy it from?" "How rude. I made it myself." "I thought you might come by today, Alex." I said, "Is that so?" and took another spoonful of the chicken soup. Lisa watched me intently. "Could you pack this chicken soup if there's any left? I'll pay you for it." "Sure, but was it that good?" "I lost my wife 15 years ago. Back then, I could cook for my 10-year-old daughter, making lunchboxes and preparing breakfast and dinner. But I never made something like chicken soup. For some reason, I wanted to serve this chicken soup to the guy my daughter would bring over tomorrow. Tomorrow, my daughter is bringing her boyfriend to our house. I always told Harriet that if she found someone she liked, she should introduce him to me first. I persuaded her by saying, "I'll do the same. Tomorrow, it'll become a reality. The first meeting with my daughter's boyfriend. What do you think about serving this chicken soup to her boyfriend?" Lisa, delighted, wrapped up a large quantity of chicken soup, enough for 10 servings, and handed it to me. When Harriet brought her boyfriend over, he was seated in the living room, rigid and formal. I was cooking in the kitchen for him. "It's ready. Let's eat." Harriet brought her nervous boyfriend to the dinner table. "I'm sorry, it's only home cooking. I told Harriet we could have gotten pizzas. It's my dad's cooking. I wanted you to try it. It's my father's taste." With the same tense look, the boyfriend bowed deeply again. "I'm Robert. I'm a medical intern at the same hospital as Harriet." I thought he was a very serious guy. "Let's skip the formalities," I said, opening a can of beer with a pop, and poured some for him. Then I offered him the food I had prepared. He said, "Thank you," and began to eat. Harriet and I watched Robert's reaction. "How is it? Is it too salty?" Harriet asked, a bit nervously. "Yeah, it's salty, strong." I didn't feel bad at all hearing his honest opinion. As I scratched my head, apologizing, Robert said, "In my family, my mom insists on using less salt for health reasons." I thought, no wonder, coming from a family of doctors. But, even though it's rude to my mom, I like this better. "It's delicious," Robert said, and with a satisfied look, he heartily ate the omelet I'd cooked. I thought he was a good, honest young man. Harriet said, "Here's more soup," and offered Robert more chicken soup. Then she explained my love for chicken. I was sipping my beer, watching the two of them, smiling. I haven't really eaten chicken soup before, but it's delicious. Is it hard to make? I can't make it. I got it because I like the taste. Robert tried the pickles and said, "Delicious, delicious." These aren't homemade either. I bought them at the supermarket. I laughed out loud. Harriet laughed too. Robert looked down, a bit embarrassed. A few days later, I went to Lisa's diner. Seeing my face, Lisa immediately asked for my impressions of my first meeting with Harriet's boyfriend. Half of me is happy, half of me is sad. It's just an ordinary feeling of a father who is everywhere. If it's ordinary, then thank God. That's what makes everyone happy after all. Lisa, who usually does not drink during business hours, said, "Let me treat you to a drink." And she drank my reserved bottle of vodka. There were several other customers, but Lisa was mostly ignoring them. She wanted to hear my story. First, I reported that Lisa's chicken soup was well received. Then, as Lisa asked, I told her how Harriet and Robert met at the same workplace, a university hospital. Harriet is a hospital clerk. Robert is a resident in the general surgery department, and he grew up in a family of doctors with a history of high education. His father is said to be the head of the hospital department and a professor. His father is an important person. Hearing Lisa's words, I remembered saying something similar to Robert. I told Harriet how strange his reaction was at the time. He gets defensive all of a sudden. It's nice to be called great by others, but his father thinks he's great himself. He thinks he's in some kind of privileged class. He gets defensive, saying he hates that. Well, even though I haven't met him, I like him already. Raising my glass filled with vodka, I thought to myself that I've got Lisa's approval. Then Lisa quickly raised her own glass and we toasted. The next weekend, from the morning, Harriet was feeling tense. She wore a brand new suit and was preparing to go out. Now, it was Harriet's turn to greet Robert's parents. If the two continue dating smoothly and even get married, then it would be time for me and their parents to greet each other. I vaguely imagined that scene. Then, Harriet's cell phone ringtone sounded. What? Cancelled? Harriet's face paled instantly as she took the call. The caller was Robert, informing her that their meeting with his parents for that day had been called off. Not long after, Robert rushed to our house to explain the situation. He had asked his parents a few days ago to stay home in the afternoon as he had someone he wanted them to meet. He kept quiet about the details. I thought my father would immediately oppose my relationship with Harriet if I told him. So, I thought I'd let them meet Harriet in person first. I thought they would like her once they met her. His father, the head of the hospital department who also handles personnel matters, seems to have misunderstood that Robert wanted to hire a friend or junior from medical school. Since then, there had been no chance for Robert to meet his father because Robert was on duty or his father was away for a conference until today. On the other hand, his mother seemed to have sensed that the person Robert wanted them to meet was his girlfriend, and she told her husband about it the night before. This morning, I was asked by my father, "Your mother says this, but is it true?" He reluctantly confessed everything. Then he was interrogated by his father about what was she doing. When he revealed that she was a clerk at the hospital, his father snorted. Then he said, "You don't need to bring every girl you date home. Just the ones you want to marry. So that's why I'm considering marriage with Harriet," said Robert, clenching his teeth in frustration and firmly placing his hand over Harriet's as she listened next to him. I became unbearably restless. Without thinking about the consequences, I visited the house where Robert lived with his parents. I thought to myself, this is what a quiet residential neighborhood is like. Among all the houses, his family's mansion stood out. "I'm Harriet's father, who was supposed to visit today. I've come because I'd like to talk to you." When I announced myself over the intercom, the gate opened and I was let in, but only as far as the front door. Robert's father looked me over from head to toe without even trying to hide his displeasure. He asked about my job in a rude manner. I answered that I worked in a factory that manufactures molds. A mere clerk tries to get her hands on my son, as if she's hitting the jackpot. "So it's the parents' doing," he said, looking around me suspiciously. And then he asked, "Where's the mother?" I answered that my wife had died of illness 15 years ago, and we had been a father-child household since then. A father-child household, and the parents work in a factory. She doesn't even qualify to be with my son. This is absurd. Please leave. I felt so angry that I almost punched him. But if I did that, there would be no going back. I held back my anger and left the place. I sent Harriet a text saying, "It didn't work out," and then I visited Lisa's diner. "Oh, what's the matter, Alex? You look like you stepped in dog poop or something." I told her about my day while downing shots of vodka one after the other. "But, you know, It's not like we need the parents' permission to get married anymore, right? Even if her parents are against it. All I have to do is support her." Then Lisa said, "That's true, but wouldn't it be better to be blessed by everyone? But if that father is the one we have to deal with, I feel like I don't stand a chance. He's a big shot at that university hospital over in Boston, right? From a family of doctors. What's his name? Smith. The son's name is Robert, but I don't know the father's first name." When I said that, Lisa repeated the name Smith to herself and seemed to come up with an idea. "Hey, set up a meeting," Lisa said. "If they look down on us for being a father-child household, we can make it known that I'm about to remarry, and she would play the role of my new wife." I couldn't keep up with Lisa's sudden suggestion. "Alex, I won't treat you badly." "Okay, I understand. I'll do as you say." And so, through Robert, I somehow managed to arrange a second meeting with his father. Just as Lisa suggested, she accompanied me as my soon-to-be second wife to their house in Boston. Lisa and I were shown into the living room. Not a single cup of tea was offered, and the father made us wait for more than 10 minutes before showing his face. I took time out because my son insisted, but I want to make this brief. He declared it was a declaration of war. First, I explained that I was going to remarry, so it would no longer be just a father-son household. So what? That has nothing to do with us. With a hospital clerk who merely has a factory worker for a father, the family status is already different enough. He repeated the same words as before. "By the way, what do you do? Part-time in a factory or something?" Robert's father said in a condescending tone. "I run a diner," Lisa firmly replied. "A diner, you mean like a bar? Well, that's fitting for a factory worker." Robert's father spat out those words and started to leave the room. Lisa quietly called out to him, "Kevin, when did you become such a person?" Robert's father turned around, dumbfounded. "Why, you know my name. Don't you remember? I'm Lisa Garcia, your former tutor." Kevin's eyes widened, and he stared at Lisa without moving a muscle. Ignoring Kevin's stare, Lisa began to speak to me. She was an excellent student, graduated from high school, and went on to a top university's science department. She aimed to be a researcher but gave up when her parents went bankrupt due to a failed business. She could have stayed in college with a scholarship but chose not to. My tutoring student during my freshman year in college was Kevin, right? Kevin looked away. Lisa continued. She had not only helped him with his studies but also given him plenty of advice on love. High schooler Kevin fell in love with a poor girl from a family on welfare. When his parents found out, they vehemently opposed it, saying their statuses and backgrounds were different. "Kevin, back then, you were troubled, asking what is status, what is family background. You were frustrated and cried, remember? So what? I was just a naive child back then, that's all. I was just flustered, caught between the two. Well, but I must say this, just for old time's sake." Lisa said that Kevin's treatment towards Harriet and Robert was just a repetition of the treatment Kevin had received from his parents when he was in high school. Kevin didn't even flinch. "Excuse me, but did you have an arranged marriage with your wife, or was it a love match? Did you like her family background? Was her social status appropriate? If that's all, your wife must be very unfortunate." At Lisa's venomous words, Kevin, who had been standing defiantly, buckled at the knees. About 2 weeks later, the stern warning Lisa gave seemed to have had an excessive effect. Harriet was invited to greet Robert's parents. I went to report to Lisa right away. Lisa was pleased and said it was good news. But hey, something's bothering me. "Oh, what's that?" "Suppose things go smoothly from here on out and Harriet and Robert's marriage talk progresses. The parents will have a formal marriage greeting. Last time, I spoke rashly and presented Lisa as my future wife, but in reality, I'm still a widower. Then hurry up and remarry," Lisa said, looking unhappy, but then she blushed like a young girl, saying that she died and only acted as my future wife for the sake of Harriet and the others. Harriet and Robert's marriage was just a matter of time. I took them to Lisa's small restaurant. First, to keep my promise with my daughter to introduce her if I ever fell in love with someone. "Lisa, the owner, here's my favorite chicken soup." I introduced Lisa and my daughter. Does he only love chicken soup? What about Lisa? My daughter teased me. I said, "Don't tease your parents," as I looked at Lisa's face. Lisa smiled back, looking happy, and then she said to Harriet, "I'm not sure about that." Harriet pestered, "Dad, what about you?" I pretended not to hear and said to Lisa, "I have a favor to ask you." "Oh, what?" "More chicken soup." The time had come for me to fulfill my second purpose in visiting Lisa that day. "If Harriet and Robert are going to have a wedding, would you mind being there as the bride's mother?" As I was fumbling around in my inside coat pocket, Lisa said, "If you want to, just say it clearly. You want to register our marriage." I took out the marriage registration form I had prepared. How was it? Subscribing to the channel and IDL encourages further production. See you in the next video.